Imagine meticulously logging like over 800 separate updates on a single home garden,
Oh, wow.
right? Or tracking your daily body weight with just the absolute precision of a data scientist, plotting every single microfluctuation on a graph.
Mapping out everything.
Exactly. You have your entire life optimized, mapped out, mathematically predictable, only to realize your single biggest vulnerability, the one thing that could completely crash your carefully calibrated reality, is a 35-centimeter fish from your childhood.
Yeah, we spend our adult lives trading the chaotic, resource-heavy passions of our youth for, well, streamlined routines.
Hmm.
We optimize our schedules, our diets, our living spaces. But as we'll explore today, those legacy passions, those messy, totally impractical obsessions we thought we left behind, they never really get uninstalled. They just, lie dormant in the system.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are analyzing a meticulously documented digital journal from April 11th, 2026. The site is qianmengling.org, and the author, Ang, describes himself as an old software plumber who spends his nights tinkering with open source software.
A very specific type of mindset.
Oh, definitely. And we are specifically looking at a post titled Notes on Fishkeeping, Part 231, The Long-Forgotten Tiger Oscar.
Or Astronotus ocellatus, if we're being scientific.
Right, right. And the goal for you today is to unpack this fascinating intersection of cold, analytical software engineering logic and the completely unpredictable, messy world of biology and nostalgia. We're looking at why a beloved childhood pet completely fails to meet the system requirements of an adult's optimized life.
It really is a clash of two worlds.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even talk about the biological realities of the fish, we have to understand the cognitive architecture of the author.
Right, the mindset.
Yeah. Looking at the metadata of this blog, this is not a casual internet diary. The records date back to 2011, and the sheer volume of output requires an almost superhuman level of discipline.
It's staggering, honestly.
In 2025 alone, Aang published 730 posts.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that is 2 posts a day, every single day, for a full year.
See, the cross-disciplinary tracking is what really stands out to me. In the exact same month he publishes notes on Fishkeeping Part 231, he is simultaneously running logs titled Notes on Haskell Programming Part 106, Notes on Gardening Part 863,
That is so much gardening.
and Notes on Dieting Part 111. He's applying the exact same rigorous component-level tracking to organic hobbies that he applies to complex software infrastructure.
I do have to push back a little bit on this methodology, though,
No.
because at a certain point, doesn't the documentation of the hobby kind of become the actual hobby?
That's a fair point.
Like, if you are writing 863 updates on your garden, you are spending way more time organizing data than you are pruning leaves. Are you actually gardening, or are you just doing data entry with dirt?
What's fascinating here is how a mind trained in systems architecture fundamentally interacts with the world. Aang calls himself a software plumber.
Right.
So he works with the deep infrastructure that makes complex systems function reliably. We are talking about languages like Haskell, which relies on purely functional programming where side effects are strictly controlled, and Erlang, which was built for telecommunications networks that demand absolute fault tolerance and, zero downtime.
So for him, interacting with the world isn't about passive observation at all. It's about establishing environments where variables can be totally isolated.
Exactly.
The joy of gardening or fish keeping isn't just looking at the end result. The joy is the act of maintaining the system's uptime.
Precisely. If you think at Erlang or Haskell, joy equals control. You map the inputs to guarantee the outputs. In fish keeping, that means meticulously tracking the nitrogen cycle, the pH gradient, the biological load.
Yeah.
You essentially build a fault-tolerant organic network.
Which perfectly explains why his childhood fascination, the tiger Oscar, presents such a monumental threat to his current lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely.
The tiger Oscar is the ultimate legacy system. Aang states right at the beginning of the post that this specific fish defined his early years in the hobby. It's deeply, deeply embedded in his nostalgia.
And he notes the temporal weight of that commitment. An Oscar isn't some seasonal project.
No, not at all.
They easily live for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Integrating one into your life means maintaining a biological server for a decade and a half.
And he has actually been trying to re-engage with this legacy system.
Yeah.
He explicitly credits his significant other for reintroducing him to the hobby, and they've been going on field trips to local fish stores for what he calls many moons.
Yeah, he's actively looking at them.
Right, but he absolutely refuses to acquire one.
Well, his refusal is grounded in a really rigorous systems analysis of the local market. He breaks down his deterrence logically, starting with the supply chain economics.
Which dictate the quality of the local fish.
Exactly.
He notes that it's incredibly rare to find an Oscar with proper form and vibrant color in local shops. He claims the local market is just flooded with what he calls rejected batches.
This is such a brilliant observation of market inefficiencies. He analyzes why the stores carry subpar stock.
Right, why are they all bad?
Well, local fish farms operate on incredibly thin margins, dictated by feed conversion ratios. They need a certain amount of protein input to equal a profitable mass output.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Oscars are notoriously aggressive eaters. They rapidly reach this inflection point where their daily caloric requirement completely exceeds their market value appreciation.
So the farms hit a wall, the fish are growing exponentially, the food costs are skyrocketing.
Right.
And if the farm holds onto them waiting for perfect coloration or perfect form to develop, they just bleed profit every single day.
Which forces the breeders to dump their imperfect stock on local retail stores prematurely, just to clear the biological load from their facilities.
It's like going to a commercial supplier to buy, say, a new smartphone, but the only ones available are the factory rejects with faulty cooling fans and degraded processing chips.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And the manufacturer is desperately dumping them because warehousing them is destroying their profit margin. You would never intentionally integrate a compromised, inefficient processor into a high-performance network.
And you certainly wouldn't do it if that processor demanded an absurd amount of physical space and power to operate.
Oh, the space.
Which connects directly to his second major deterrent, the massive physical architecture required to host this biological entity.
We are talking about the sheer physical reality of the animal. Aang points out that a mature Oscar reaches 30 to 35 centimeters.
That is a big fish.
Over a foot long of pure, aggressive biological mass.
To accommodate that mass, he calculates the necessary physical footprint. The absolute minimum requirement for a single fish is a 285-liter tank.
But his approach to housing this 285-liter system completely threw me. I frankly struggled with his logic here.
Really? How come?
Well, he states he is not keen on maintaining a massive glass aquarium. Instead, he advocates for the humble EPS foam box.
Ah, the foam box.
I mean, I understand system optimization, but isn't the entire fundamental point of fish keeping to actually look at the fish through clear glass? You are maintaining a box of water that you can't even look into from the side. How does an opaque foam box solve anything?
It seems counterintuitive only if you view fish keeping through the lens of traditional aesthetics.
Okay.
If we apply the software plumber's framework, the EPS foam box is a masterclass in hardware optimization. Think about the thermodynamics of a traditional glass aquarium.
Glass is a terrible insulator. It transfers ambient room temperature directly into the water column.
Exactly. Glass constantly bleeds heat. And because of that thermal bleed, the system's internal heater, which is a high wattage point of failure, has to constantly cycle on and off to maintain a tropical temperature.
Right, it's always working.
And that cycling creates microfluctuations in the environment, induces hardware wear, and just consumes excessive electricity.
Oh, I see. An EPS foam box, on the other hand, is chemically inert and highly insulating. It basically isolates the microclimate.
Yeah, the thermal bleed drops to near zero.
So the heater barely has to work at all.
The environmental parameters just remain flatline stable. Plus, EPS is visually opaque, which prevents ambient light from penetrating the sides.
Oh, to stop the algae.
Exactly. It suppresses algae blooms, which, if left unchecked, would wildly alter the water chemistry and force emergency maintenance. He is prioritizing absolute system stability over the aesthetic viewing experience.
He is literally treating the enclosure like a data center. You don't need the server rack to look beautiful with glass panels. You need it to run cool, remain stable, and isolate the internal hardware from external interference.
But here's where the analogy to a data center kind of breaks down, and it gets to the core of why Aang ultimately rejects the fish.
Okay.
Code, no matter how complex it is, does not possess independent agency. A database application does not actively try to consume the routing software.
No, it doesn't.
Biology does.
Right. The diet and the aggression. Aang notes that Oscars are large carnivores with omnivorous tendencies. They require massive inputs of high-quality pellets or feeder fish.
And he explicitly notes they will consume literally any tank mate that fits inside their mouth.
So you have a legacy system component, the Oscar, that demands 285 liters of dedicated space,
Hmm.
requires constant, expensive, highly specialized inputs just to stay online,
Hmm.
and is actively hostile to other applications. It will systematically destroy other components you try to introduce to the network.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the software plumber's hesitation is deeply rooted in the ultimate lack of control.
Yeah.
A 30-centimeter carnivorous fish is essentially a biological side effect generator. It constantly produces waste, constantly alters the water chemistry, and constantly tests the fault tolerance of the biological filtration.
Right, it's chaos.
No matter how perfectly Ang designs the EPS foam box or tracks the pH, the biological entity will always try to introduce chaos into the system.
It is an airtight, mathematically unassailable framework for saying no. I mean, he has analyzed the macroeconomics of the local supply chain, mapped the thermodynamic flaws of standard enclosures, and calculated the unacceptable resource consumption of the entity itself.
It's extremely thorough.
The logical verdict is an absolute rejection, which is why the final paragraph of this blog post is so incredibly jarring. Here's where it gets really interesting.
He abandons the framework entirely.
Completely throws it out the window. After laying out this totally bulletproof case for why the Tiger Oscar is an objective nightmare for an optimized life, Ang openly admits that he would ignore every single rule if he ever stumbled upon a specimen with truly exceptional form and color.
It's the human contradiction.
Yeah.
The man who logs his daily body weight in notes on Dieting Part 111, a man whose entire worldview relies on discipline and data-driven predictability, confesses that he would willingly introduce a massive, resource-draining agent of chaos into his home for pure aesthetic nostalgia.
He would buy the massive glass tank despite its thermal inefficiencies. He would finance the absurd dietary requirements.
Yep.
He would sacrifice the stability of his entire system. He would do it all instantly for the perfect physical manifestation of his childhood memory.
There is a profound melancholy to that admission, though.
How so?
Because immediately after acknowledging he would break his own rules, he notes, quote, "But I really doubt that'll happen."
Ah. He's been searching for many moons in these local shops with his significant other. The data has already proven to him that the perfect fish just doesn't exist in his market.
This elevates the documentation from a mere hobby log to an exercise in defining the void.
Wow, yeah.
The rigorous archiving of his life isn't just about exerting control, it's a way of setting the exact parameters required to make him surrender that control. He has systematically defined the impossible standard required to resurrect a ghost from his youth.
It suggests that the hobby isn't about maintaining the fish at all. The hobby is the search itself. He and a significant other are running a continuous diagnostic across these local stores, armed with an impossible checklist, looking for an exception to the rule that will probably never render.
When we synthesize this deeply technical deep dive, we find a uniquely human narrative. We've mapped the fault tolerance of Erlang programming onto biological nitrogen cycles, tracked the profit margins of agricultural fish farms, and debated the thermodynamics of styrofoam versus glass. All to understand why a brilliant systems engineer won't purchase an animal he deeply loves.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? The friction between our highly logical adult routines and our chaotic, impractical childhood desires, it's universal.
Totally.
Ang has built a fortress of analytical optimization, yet he intentionally leaves the back door unlocked just in case irrational nostalgia happens to walk by.
We all harbor a Tiger Oscar in our mental architecture.
Oh, definitely.
It's that completely inefficient, space-consuming, high-maintenance pursuit we abandon for the sake of adult practicality. Logically, we know the system cannot support it.
Yeah.
But if the absolutely perfect iteration of that pursuit suddenly materialized in front of us, the logic wouldn't matter.
We drop the spreadsheet, abandon the optimized routine, and buy the 285-liter tank.
This raises an important question, one that extends far beyond open-source software or aquarium maintenance.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author has spent over a decade meticulously graphing the variables of his life, tracking every input and output to maintain absolute system uptime. Does the act of hyper-documenting our daily routines actually protect us from making irrational, resource-draining mistakes? Or does all that data simply provide a high-resolution map of exactly what is missing from the system?
That is a great thought to end on.
Think about the metrics you carefully track in your own life, and what dormant legacy programs might be slipping right through the cracks of your own data, just waiting for the perfect moment to crash your optimized reality.